All right, welcome everybody. We're going to call our meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. Born in
All right, next we have our approval of minutes. Our first is the March 18th, 2019 regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Next is approval of the minutes from March 25th, 2019 public hearing on the school budget.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. April 1st, 2019 regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved 5-0. The next is the April 1st, 2019 executive session minutes. Motion
moved.
approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved 5-0. And the April 8th, 2019 work session audit.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Motion approved 4-0. And April 8th executive, we're going to hold off on. I didn't have a chance to go over them. So next we have a proclamation regarding Arbor Day. So Arbor Day is going to be celebrated on Friday, April 26th, in 2019, and the Public Works Department will be planting 2 tulip trees near the generator at the Narragansett Pier School on that day. The Conservation Commission will be inviting students from the middle school to assist in the planting of those trees. The second announcement that I did want to take a moment of silent prayer for Grace Reddington. People might be familiar with the Race for Grace that took place many years ago. So her family is a strong witness to faith, and want to take a moment for them and their loss. All right, thank you, everyone. All right, on the consent agenda, we're going to move to the consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that someone would like to remove for further discussion? I'm actually going to just remove number 1, so if we can get a motion for the approval of the consent agenda with the exception of item number 1.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. And item number 1 is a motion to approve a Class F1 alcoholic beverage license for Friends of the Towers for May 3rd, 2019 at the Towers, Narragansett, Rhode Island, subject to state and local regulations. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I just wanted to make sure that the public was aware of this event. This is an important event that the Towers Committee sponsors, and it's going to be on May 3rd, 2019 at the Towers. So I just wanted to highlight that for everybody. Is all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Our next item is item number 11, a motion to approve the 2019 contract.
Is there a way we can move up the, what is that, number 20 and 21?
If you want to make a motion to do that.
I'd like to make a motion to move 20 and 21 up to the beginning of the new business section.
Right, is there a second for that?
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No, motion fails 2-3. Item number 11 is a motion to approve the 2019 contract agreement for the 43rd annual concert on the beach with the Rhode Island Philharmonic Orchestra in the amount of $22,500 and authorizes the acting town manager to sign the contract after review by the town solicitor.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All right, so this is our Philharmonic event, which is going to be held on Friday, July 12th, and the rain date Saturday, July 13th. Any questions for the Parks and Recreation Department?
I got a question. How am I supposed to vote? No, never mind.
Sure, I have a quick question.
Steve, if you want to come up, please.
It'll be really quick, just one question. Steve,
Good evening.
how you doing?
Good. How about yourself?
Good, thanks. I was just curious what the cost was for the Philharmonic last year, just for reference.
So the cost last year was about, total expense was $41,099.40.
Okay, and what was the cost for the orchestra?
The orchestra is $21,900
That was last year.
last year.
Okay, great. All right, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Steve. This is a great event in the middle of the summer that Steve does a great job with. Is there any questions? Are there any questions or comments? Yes.
Yes, I think it's a wonderful event. I love the orchestra. I think one of the things that might want to be addressed is the parking situation. I know I've attended in the past, and sometimes people park illegally. We have people coming from throughout the state, and at one time they actually had after people were well situated and sitting down, they said, if the cars are parked on Route 1, they're going to be towed. So I think there should be police out there or someone monitoring the parking ahead of time so people aren't going to be set up for failure, because people might be unknowingly parking their car miles, maybe a mile or 2 miles away from the beach area, and then they're walking to Narragansett Beach. And, if you hear an announcement and you're out on the beach with your family and you got your food out, everything else, it could be a significant inconvenience for someone to have to get up at that time and go move their car. So I don't know if there's some way of maybe getting the police out there, where they do not want parking, if there's such a hazard or whatever, just to preclude people parking in the wrong location and risk having their car towed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion approved 5-0. Item 12 is a motion to approve the 2019 contract agreement for production support services with Bill Brackett Theatrical Productions, LLC for the 43rd Annual Concert on the Beach in the amount of $11,220 and authorizes the acting town manager to sign the contract after review by the town solicitor.
So moved.
Discussion? Any questions for Parks and Rec? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion approved 5-0. Item 13 is a motion to approve the 3-year contract agreement for a food and beverage concession at the Sprague Park Little League building with Narragansett Little League, subject to approval of state and local regulations.
So moved.
Discussion. Are there any questions for Mr. Wright? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion approved 5-0. Item number 14 is a motion to introduce, read, pass, and accept as a first reading an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 731 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled Zoning, at Section 3.2 Official Zoning Map, rezoning 2 properties to comply with designations assigned in the 2017 Narragansett Comprehensive Plan Land Use Map.
So moved.
Okay, these 2 properties are, one is located Plat NK Lot 3-15, 101 Riverdale Drive, going from R80 to R10, and the other is 155 Rodman Street, Plat H Lot 37, going from public to R40 residential, and this is a first reading of that. Any questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Next item is number 15, a motion to approve the recommendations of the Sewer Policy Committee relative to the following properties: Plat NH Lot 68, 9 Crest Avenue, and Plat NR Lot 1067 and 1068, 8 Prescott Isle Road.
So moved.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item number 16 is a motion to appoint Christine Spagnoli as Finance Director effective April 29th, 2019.
So moved.
Discussion. So many of you may know we're going to thank Gloria Kenyon for her service to the town. And that she will be retiring, and so this is a motion for the current controller, who we're glad to have to be the finance director. Any questions from the council? Yes, Richard.
On behalf of myself and the other members of the Narragansett Town Finance Committee, the town, as it just happened, should applaud the fine work of Laura Kenyon, our retiring finance director. Just one example of this is our OPEB liability in 2009 was $70 million with no OPEB trust fund assets. The liability as of 6/30/2018 is $40.3 million with the trust fund assets of $6.89 million. So we have gone from $70 million down to $33.4 million down, and I think we're going to go down lower, and much of that is the work of Laura.
Yep. All right.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item number 17 is a motion to approve the filling of one vacancy of the controller position due to promotion.
So moved.
So what I was going to do is just have Laura now explain these three motions together, the one with her vacancy, and then what that kind of the domino effect of that. So this would relate to to all three of these items, 16, 17, and 18. Just a brief thank you.
So basically, with my retirement, and thank you for appointing Chris as new finance director. I know she'll do a great job. Second, this motion is to fill the vacancy of the controller, which was with Chris moving up. It would leave the vacancy for the controller's position. And then the next motion is to fill the vacancy within the tax collection division. This was already presented to the town council to fill the vacancy in the tax collection division. But with my retirement and with Chris moving and the controller, we are asking you to fill the tax collection clerk. It's the full-time clerk for tax collection. There is a third clerk position that is a finance floater clerk, which currently spends basically 100% of her time in the tax division. We are asking that position be used 50% in tax collections and 50% in the finance office. That is not the position that you would be approving tonight. We can do that as just a change of duties for that finance floater clerk, but this position is to fill that full-time position in the tax office. We have found with the transfer to the town clerk's office of that clerk that we actually have to close collections during lunch because there are only two people. So if somebody is out or on vacation, we have difficulty keeping that office open and the services for the tax collection. So we're asking you to approve the filling of that tax collection clerk tonight.
All right, so they are separate motions. So the one in front of us is item 17, which we have the motion on, which is the controller. Are there any questions or comments from the council on that? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion approved 5-0. Item 18, a motion to approve the filling of one vacancy within the tax collection division due to a transfer to another department.
So moved.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion on that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion approved 5-0. Item 19 is a motion to schedule a work session with NIHART to discuss and review the actuarial studies for the town's pension plan and other post-employment benefits.
So moved.
Second.
So this work session with NIHARD on the pensions will be on May 20th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. It's scheduled for 6:30 p.m. on May 20th, 2019. Any questions on that? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved, 5-0. Item number 20 is a motion to receive and make a determination on the validity of a voter initiative to amend Chapter 42 of the Code of Ordinances to add new Section 42-2, acquisition and renovation of new library at the former Belmont IGA location.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so before we go, I'm going to ask, as people are familiar with these initiative processes, we're at the point in the process where the town solicitor gives his advisory opinion on it, and then we have to determine whether it's going to be accepted or if it's going to be marked invalid. So I'm going to turn it over to the town solicitor to share his opinion.
Good evening. I received a petition from the Narragansett Town Clerk, date stamped March 25th, 2019, that was submitted by Susan Cicilline Bonanno. The petition proposes to amend Chapter 42, which is entitled Library, of the Narragansett Code of Ordinances by adding a new section, 42-2, entitled Acquisition and Renovation of New Library at the former Belmont/IGA location. I'm not going to read the entire petition. You have it in your package. But in essence, the new ordinance reads in part that the proceeds of the bonds, and they're referring to the $5.8 million in bonds, when issued, shall only be used in connection with the acquisition of the former Belmont Supermarket ground floor, the administrative office space, second floor, to renovate the said space, to purchase equipment, and any ancillary or related expenses in conformance with what was advertised. In addition, the ordinance would require that authorized town officials would make reasonable good faith efforts to apply for all relevant matching of grant funds from the state of Rhode Island, including but not limited to the Office of Library Information Services. I read the law, I read all relevant laws, statutes, reviewed the charter and the ordinances, and in my opinion, this is a legally permissible ordinance and petition, and therefore my recommendation is to hold this as valid.
All right, so before we go to the discussion, then I would like a motion from a council member either marking this as accepted or marking it as invalid.
Put a motion in to accept the recommendation.
As valid.
Right, so this would be a motion to accept the
Validity.
yeah, a motion to accept. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so with that, then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jerzyk.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the Town Council. On behalf of the petitioner, Susan Cicilline Bonanno, we are here today in marked response to the public comments made by the council members and the solicitor at the last voter initiative meeting, and the ordinance before you reflects the comments that the solicitor had made and provided a roadmap towards writing a bond ordinance that he would find legally permissible, and we certainly applaud his determination before you today that it is in fact legally permissible according to city, state, and federal law. Pursuant to Section 1-4-1, the process for voter initiative here in town states that the council may only mark the petition as invalid if the petition conflicts with the federal or state constitution, federal or state law, or recognized judicial decisions interpreting federal or state law. as the solicitor has presented no evidence that there is anything in conflict in this petition with town, state, or federal law, we would ask this council to mark this petition valid tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone from the council? All right, anyone from the public? Yes, Richard.
You know, I make the same point each time. There are 3 separate buildings that look like one building. And this is not clear. To me, and I think to the people that voted on the bond issue, we looked at this as the former IGA market with no intent to ever include the second floor in it. It was never mentioned. And we have the liquor store. And this remains unclear because if you have 3 specific properties disguised as one structure, each one must be carefully mentioned in here. And we again failed to do this.
Thank you. Mr. Alba.
Hi, Dr. Al Alba, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace. Out of all due respect, Richard.
Just you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, it really is puzzling to me when we have the library board, we have a certified engineer who wrote letters stating to the effect that, you know, the renovation of the old building, it's not going to work out. We have the people from we have the experts from the American Library Association who have given their endorsement. So we have all these experts, and who's to say we cannot use the upstairs? I think the upstairs has multiple avenues of using that space productively. So when anyone can come up here and say we cannot use the upstairs, and we're not going to profit from the liquor store, you know, it's just mind-boggling to me. You know, if anything, the liquor store is going to be bringing in revenue. So it's going to offset any of the expenses that the town might have. So I think we should put our minds together, work collectively, and let's push this through. It's not as though we're not hearing from experts. We're hearing from experts, from engineers, from the library board, from people who have vested interest in this area. And for me to tell any of you your jobs, it would be foolhardy, because we all have our unique specialties. As a doctor, you can go to a podiatrist, you can go to a heart surgeon. They each have the unique specialties. And to me, the entrusted library board for the last 10 years, you know, previous town councils entrusted them. They gave them faith. They worked with them. So I'm just at a loss at why we can't collectively work together to have this library built, a state-of-the-art library. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock, I'm going to the Tiverton Library, and I'll be videotaping and getting a tour of the Tiverton Library. And I'll gladly share that with all of you. But I hope we can, you know, put this matter to rest. And if we need a mediator, let's get a mediator. But let's try to work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Anyone from the council? Is there anyone else? Oh, Stanley, Jason. Okay.
Sure. Well, Stanley go.
Either one of, yeah.
Stan Wachowski on Narragansett. Voter initiative, I guess that means the voters make a decision rather than the council. Okay, we have 12,557 registered voters. And if you consider the registered voters number versus the amount of people that voted for the library, it was only was less than 45%. So there is actually not a, you know, it's not over 50%, so it's really, if we go to listen to the voters, are we going to use that number? We have registered voters, and then how many are going to say yes and how many are going to say no? Now, you bring out those who voted. Well, the registered voters would go out and vote if they have an opinion, a significant opinion. So obviously they didn't have an opinion, so less than 45% of the registered voters actually voted for the library. That's the numbers side of it. The biggest question is, I like to know the cost of something before I get into it. I want the detailed costs involved, and I want them from a professional company. I understand we got engineers and we got all these people, but like I say, we need a specific engineers, we need a specific cost in any project that we move forward. I don't want to move forward until we have a nailed down cost involved, and then we can evaluate if there is an alternative at a more reasonable cost. So I want money to be involved, not opinion at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Jason Howell, 116 Westmoreland, Narragansett. Mr. Mannix, I think enough is enough. It's time to put the town's best interests forward and accept the will of the people. Yes, you could put all different, I know, scenarios of voters and this and that, but the voters voted, and they voted for this library. This library has only clouded the council's decision-making on other important town issues. A divided community, a divided council doesn't move this town forward. I witnessed a united community on Saturday at the old library, and even though we were packed shoulder to shoulder in a small room, it was an awesome turnout and event. Everyone at the event was in support of the library's move to the old IGA market. Events like these in a new library in the pier, the center of this town, would only grow our community, bring all of us together in a dead zone. I see so much support for this library move, and I ask you, Matt, besides yourself and the out-of-touch council members, where's your supporters? When's your rally against the voted bond for a new library in the Piers Marketplace? Where's your hundreds of people at these meetings against this move? I hear 2. Matt, please don't side with these kinds of people. I know you, and I don't dislike you. You went to school here. You grew up in Bonnet Beach. Your peers live here with you. If I was you, I would reconsider your decision against moving our library to the pier and into the old IGA market. Don't sell it, build it. Drop this personal battle. Be the bigger person. Let the people get what they voted for, a new, modern library in the Pier's old IGA marketplace. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else? All right, anyone from the council?
Sure. I definitely appreciate all the comments from those in the crowd and the remarks from Mr. Jerzyk. I do want to reiterate for this motion that this is not a motion to really debate the library. The opinions are fantastic, but what we're voting on here, our personal opinions have no bearing really on this. What we're voting on is if this is legal, if this petition is legal. And unless someone on the council here or someone in the crowd can specify what's illegal about it, then we have no option other than to vote yes on this. So just want to clarify that.
Is anyone else? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item 21, we'll start it, but, all right. Item 21, a motion to receive and make a determination on the validity of a voter initiative to amend the town charter regarding the authority to sell town-owned property.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. I mean, I'll actually take the pleasure of the council. Do you want to hear Mark's opinion now, or do you want to jump into the public hearings? Because we're going to have to go in 2 minutes anyway.
Maybe
Can
public
you do it in
hearing.
2 minutes, Mark?
What do you guys want to
Public
do?
hearing.
Okay. All right. So Mark will come to you after the public hearings because they have to start at 8 o'clock. Are you ready? Okay. All right. So at 8 o'clock we have have our public hearing notices. So by law we have to start those at 8 p.m. So we'll return to that motion after these are done. Public hearings. First is a motion to reopen a public hearing on an application for a transfer of an alcohol beverage license from Whale Rock Restaurant Group LLC doing business as Tortuga Restaurant to High Tide Restaurant LLC doing business as High Tide Restaurant, Assessors Plat C, Lot 319, 21 Pier Marketplace, Narragansett, Rhode Island. Is there a motion to reopen the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So this hearing is being reopened because the name was incorrect. This was going from High Tide Restaurant, it was going from, I'm sorry, Tortuga to High Tide Restaurant, and it's supposed to be going from Tortuga to Thai Best Restaurant. So that's for clarification purposes. Is the applicant here this evening?
No, we're good.
Okay. Could you just reiterate for the record, Terry, for me as well, so that we make sure we're doing this properly, making this correction?
Thank you. Yes, the motion that appeared on the last agenda was actually a motion to hold a public hearing on the transfer from Whale Rock Restaurant Group to doing business as Tortuga Restaurant to High Tide Restaurant, and that was in error. The agenda introduction and motion should have read a motion to hold a public hearing on an application for a transfer of a Class B victualling alcohol beverage license from Whale Rock Restaurant Group LLC, doing business as Tortuga Restaurant, to Thai Best LLC, Assessors Plat C, Lot 181-1A, at 21 Pier Marketplace, Narragansett, Rhode Island. The application, the advertisement, and the testimony all correctly reference Thai Best LLC. And so reopening the public hearing and correcting this error would ensure that the license transfer to Thai Best LLC is accomplished. The applicant and the attorney for the applicant were notified and they are aware of this clarification tonight.
Great. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? All right, if not, I'm going to take a motion to close that public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then is there a motion on the transfer itself?
Motion to accept the transfer.
Second.
All right, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved 5-0. Next is a motion to schedule a public hearing on the second-hand goods dealer license application of Richard A. Bloom doing business as Narratiques at 909 Boston Neck Road, Unit Number 3, subject to local and state regulations.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so this is a scheduling. What is the date for that?
The suggested date is May 6th.
All right, so this will be May 6th at 8 p.m. Any questions on that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion approved 5-0. Next is a motion to continue a public hearing to consider rezoning 4 properties to comply with designations assigned in the 2017 Narragansett Plan land use map.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. So this item was continued at our last meeting because there was concerns with these 4 properties being changed. They were kind of scattered across the town. The town clerk has checked the schedules of the Community Development Department and the attorneys and the applicants, and so the date we have for this is June 17th, 2019. All right. All in favor to continue this item to June 17th, 2019?
I just have one question. When we change dates, do these property owners get a notice?
No, because the public hearing is continued, so they get to, that's
You
why
gotta
we do it publicly.
Yeah,
we
I know.
continued it last time.
I know, but
so
we-
if we didn't do that, we would then have to renotice everybody, but because we're doing the whole process publicly, they have notice of it. Remember, we continued it last time.
So they just got to pay attention. Okay.
Yes.
Very good.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion approved, 5-0. Item next is a motion to hold a public hearing on the issue of amending Narragansett zoning ordinances with regard to accessory structures in light of the Rhode Island General Assembly's passage of H7741 substitutes A, which amended height limits for buildings under Rhode Island General Law, Section 45-24-31. Is there a motion to open that public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, 5-0. So we had extensive discussion about this issue concerning height limits, and that height limits could start beyond the base flood elevation, which means that your living area would start at a certain height, and that was in some cases a lot of feet. And so the fear was that we would have structures in those areas that were closest to the water that would be well above the 35-foot height limit. So all cities and towns have been confronted with this. We did address it for main structures, but now we're looking at accessory structures and their height limits. So I'm going to turn this over now to Jill Sabo from the Planning Department to brief us on what's been going on at the Planning Board and what their recommendation is.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. I am Jill Sabo with the Planning Department. So as you recall, a couple of months ago, we brought forward a building height ordinance change. It was specifically to stop extraordinarily tall buildings based on the new state law. So just as a recap, the new state law right here, you'll see in bright red says that building height shall be measured from the base flood elevation. We used to measure building height from the grade, but the law changed that to the base flood elevation. And also it did one other significant change, and it not only referred to FEMA maps, but it referred to the CRMC Storm Tools design elevation maps. Those design elevation maps are a series of 6 maps at sea level rise 0, 2, 3, 5, 7, and 10. We modeled this ordinance after the first one. We did essentially the same thing. We took the information and we said, okay, we're going to try to inverse the numbers so that the accessory structure height doesn't get over what currently is in town, which is 18 feet. So as you'll see in the chart right here, so if the base flood or the Storm Tools design elevation is any one of these numbers, the inverse allowable height above the BFE or SDE is this number right here. And then the text, which you see in the blue up at the top, basically refers to that, that table. I would like to ask and point out just if the council could take a look. We would like to amend one of the words in this ordinance, in this word specifically. I'd like to remove maximum floor height and change that to maximum building height. I think that floor height word, specifically the word floor, is confusing.
So when we come to that portion, just remind us on that. I'll make a note right now.
Absolutely. Okay, so the second portion of the text, where it says the detached accessory structure shall have a height at average grade of the foundation higher than feet, shall have no, higher than 9 feet, shall have no internal living area. So right now, accessory structures may have internal living area, but we were concerned that the living area would simply get too small, too short on top. So we are suggesting to limit that, any potential living area if the base flood elevation or SDE is higher than 9 feet above grade. And as similar to the last time that I presented to you, I just provided a chart for your clarification. This chart is not part of the ordinance change. If you have any questions.
So the maximum height on an accessory structure would be?
18 feet.
Great. Any questions right now?
How you doing?
But let me just clarify, that's detached accessory structures.
Thank you.
Accessory structure. So you're talking a shed, right?
Sheds, detached garages, a multitude of other things.
Little
People use
pool
accessory
house,
structures.
little pool house.
Cabanas.
Right now, what's the max height of those structures?
18 feet.
Okay. So what did you do previously in a flood zone? Did you let them?
No, so previously the height was measured from the grade. So if the structure, let's say it was a detached garage, was in the flood zone, they would be required to comply with all federal, state, and local regulations. They'd need to put in flood vents. If they had a floor above that floor would need to comply with the state building code, which is 1 foot above the base flood elevation. All this would still comply. So there's no non-compliance in our proposed ordinance.
And, I don't know. I mean, we're 30 feet on the house. We're 18 feet on the pool house.
35 feet.
35, yeah, 35 feet on the house, 18 feet on the pool house.
Correct. That was what we were pre-March 1st.
Right. Yeah, I've been kind of kicking this one around.
Okay.
I don't know. What do you think, guys? Think we can tweak that, or? I don't know. It seems to me, I mean, if you go back to that chart.
Sure.
In that, no, the scale, yeah, that one.
Sure.
If you're in a 17-foot flood zone, you got just enough to put a platform up there, correct?
Correct. Or you could be a one-story garage.
One-story, yeah, but, yeah, okay. But it's just a flat roof.
But it's a living area, so this is like a proportional as the living area.
Right.
It just
when you're
shows
next to the sea level rise, high sea level rise factor, and you're worried about being resilient, then your living space, you will sacrifice essentially living space for that.
Right.
Yes,
That's
you
how
would
it
sacrifice,
works.
exactly. That doesn't mean you couldn't have an 18-foot tall garage with a storage area above, a platform above. But it does mean that whatever area is below the base flood elevation would need to comply. And it would comply pre-March 1st with flood vents and or the like.
Okay. All right.
All right, any other council members? All right, does anybody from the public wish to testify?
Somebody. That's it. Nobody's here.
All right, so seeing none, what I'll do is I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All right, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion approved 5-0. And so now we will have a motion for, if I can have a motion for the amended, if you can come up with, to just clarify that word that we're changing from floor to building. So a motion to draft an ordinance accepting a recommendation of the planning department with the amendment of changing the word in the phrase maximum floor height limit to maximum building height limit. Can I get that motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, discussion. Hey, Jill, does that handle?
It
what
does.
we need
Thank
to
you
do?
very much.
All right. And if you want to just explain why we are changing that one word for everyone, just for the record.
Absolutely. So the word floor height, as I was rereading it today, sounded confusing to me. Did that mean you had to have, in some of these cases, a 17-foot floor to ceiling height? What the purpose and intent of this change is to actually make sure that the building height doesn't get over 18 feet. So I wanted to be clear with that we weren't, so that bottom row doesn't control the floor height so much as it controls the whole building height. In that, after, as it's measured in the new law, which is above the BFE or SDE. So the building height is measured now from the base flood elevation and not grade. So if you take an example of base flood elevation of 3, the building height is 15, not the floor height.
So excellent work by Ms. Sabo and on this, both with the main structures and the accessory structures. So thank you.
Thank you.
And if there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Next is a motion to reschedule a public hearing for a text amendment to Narragansett zoning ordinance, adding a new section regulating the cultivation and use of marijuana for medical purposes.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. This is a change to our first hearing on this to June 3rd to just give the planning board a little more time to make their recommendation. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Next is a motion to hold a public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2020 budget. Is there a motion to open that public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All right, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved 5-0, and I'm going to call on the finance director to brief us on the budget to start the public hearing.
Good evening again. First of all, I want to thank the department heads and the staff for all their hard work in completing this budget. Just to give you a summary of the process and of this budget, the departments work from a zero base and have to justify every dollar that they've requested in their budgets. The manager has met with the departments at least once and for the requests of their funding, and he has made his recommendation, which is the budget that you have before you tonight. This is not the final budget for the 1920 fiscal year. The town council will now diligently review the document and meet with the departments for that final version. The manager's cuts to the department was about $1 million. This is primarily in the capital improvements part of the budget, as the balance comprises mostly of contractual obligations. Personnel costs, pension, other post-employment benefits, and bond payments are examples of these obligations. The presentation tonight is going to be focused on the general fund budget, as this is the budget funded with tax dollars. The increase is currently around $2.2 million, or 3.7% increase, and the budget totals $61.6 million. Of this, 35.2 or 50% of the budget is for town operations, and 26.4 or 43% is for school operations funded by tax dollars. The tax rate currently is anticipated to be around $10.31 for the residential property, and that's an increase of 36 cents from the $9.95 rate. For example, a home valued at about $500,000, this is a proposed tax increase of $180 or $15 a month on their tax bill. There are other funds, water, wastewater, beach, but they are funded by their own revenue sources and primarily user fees. These funds will be reviewed in more detail by the council during the work sessions and not fully presented here tonight. So we ask anyone who wants any details on this or more on the general fund to attend those April work sessions. And I also have detailed budgets on the table where we sit if anybody wants a copy of them. So to go to the presentation, I'll tell you what's notable in this budget. There is an increase in the funding for the capital projects, and this is to keep the equipment, roads, and buildings maintained in the town. There is 100% funding of the contribution for the pension and OPEB funds, and there are no additional positions required to provide the continued high level of services we now provide. The tax levy is at the 4% maximum, which the state allows, and that would then translate to a 3.6% increase in taxes. And the state law does restrict the amount of tax revenue that can be increased every year by a municipality. There is a use of the fund balance reserve to cover the capital expenditures, and that would still leave the town within the town fund balance policy at around 12%. And the use of the reserve, like I said, is for capital expenditures, which are one-time expenditures and not the operating budget. Just to give you numbers, but what to take away from this slide is the third column over is the increase over the current year, which is $2.2 million. I would ask you just then to go down to uses. under personnel about halfway down. So the use increase for personnel is about $820,000. The increase for, go 2/3 the way down, debt service is $594,000. The additional increase for capital, as I had talked about, is about $385,000. And the increase for the school is about $337,000. If you just take those 4 items, you come up to close to that 2.1. So basically the contracts, the personnel, the debt service for bond payments, our capital transfer to maintain our assets, and the required or the recommended transfer to the school budget of the $337,000. So let's talk about what's in that capital projects. Well, first, IT is looking to upgrade a more secure system through the infrastructure for about $100,000. The fire department is looking for $500,000. This is to complete the 2-year funding for engine number 4, which is already over 20 years old. The police vehicle replacement program is an ongoing program where we replace three vehicles a year to maintain the fleet on an ongoing basis. There's $350,000 for road improvements. This is for the maintenance of the roads. It's not the construction. Public Works is $385,000, which is, again, to continue replacement of their equipment, and in this, the vehicles is for a new plow and a new pickup. Parks vehicle and equipment for $307,000 is basically to continue for the park maintenance and of their assets, and they're looking to replace a 12-year-old dump truck. Other items are the storm drain replacement program, which is ongoing. There are a lot of other miscellaneous projects also that require general fund transfers. I'm also noting, so when we get into the water, wastewater funds and beach funds, that there's $200,000 that the water fund would like to continue their water meter reading program. Upgrades to the wastewater pump stations is about $650,000. The Scarborough treatment plant upgrades is about $685,000. And there is a project in there for renovation or rebuild of beach cabanas in the beach fund for about $657,000. This next slide is for people who want to realize actually the history of what we put into the capital projects funds over years. And you will note from the general fund on the far side, over the 6 years, we have tried to maintain a high level of transfers and asset protection for the town on the general fund side. But even if you go far to the right-hand column, that we range from almost $3 to $5 million over the history, again, for capital asset maintenance. This is just, again, the slide just breaks down by category expenditures and a history of the town. Basically, the total budget for the town over the past 5 years is about 3.5% increase, and this year we're looking for a 3.7% increase. So here again is the impact on the taxes. So the proposed tax rate currently is for the residential property to go to $10.31 per thousand. Commercial rate would then go to $14.43 in compared to $9.95 and $13.93 per thousand. The tax levy increase is $1.8 million, and it represents on the taxes would be a 3.6% increase more than the current year. So basically what comes next is the complete budget will be presented to the town council, and the town council will have their work sessions April 23rd, 24th, and 25th. The school committee and the town council meet again on April 29th. There will be another public hearing on the budget, the second one, on May 6th, and the adoption of the budget by ordinance is May 20th and June 3rd.
Thank you. Oh, Laura, could you stay up, please? Okay.
I just had one question. I just had one question. Is that the bond on Middlebridge? That's been satisfied, right?
Off the top of my head, it's either this year or there's one more payment in the middle of next year. I don't know if, you know.
Close,
It's one
right?
more. It's close, yeah.
One more year, okay. That's it.
All right, any comments or questions from the council? All right, any comments from the public? Yes, Stanley.
Stan Wachowski, Narragansett.
Excuse me, Stanley. Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
I remember looking at my Social Security check, I guess, and it went up, I think, was 2.67%. So from my perspective, the government tells me that the appropriate increase over the year should be 2.67. So we're not there yet. You know, I'd expect that you would kind of use that as a guideline. It's only 1%, but over 10 years, that could be 10%. So we do have to make the necessary cuts. I heard a plow. Well, I only used a plow twice last year. So I'm not so sure we should buy a plow. And I'll always still stay with the vehicles. Can we buy last year's model on vehicles so we can save money on vehicles? So there's got to be places where we can save money to get down closer to that 2.7 rather than this 3.7. So we've got to trim it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, seeing none, I'm going to take a motion to continue the public hearing to May 6th.
So moved.
Second.
All right, discussion. So we have, with all the work sessions that are going to be in between, so the changes to the budget will be made at that time, and then we'll have another public hearing on May 6th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved, 5-0. Item number 21 is a motion to receive and make a determination on the validity of a voter initiative to amend the town charter regarding the authority to sell town-owned property. I believe I'm just restating it because the motion was made and seconded. Is that correct, Terry? Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Davis because under this process, the next step when these initiatives are received by the town clerk is to get the opinion of the solicitor to help guide the council.
I received a petition from the Narragansett Town Clerk, date stamped March 27th, that was submitted by Winters B. Hames. The petition seeks to modify Chapter 3, Section 1-3-1, which is entitled Powers of the Town. And the petition is attached to the opinion I submitted, so I won't read it in its totality. We discussed this several meetings ago, something similar. But what Mr. Hames seeks to do is to replace the existing ordinance with a new ordinance that reads almost identical, with the exception of the powers of the town to sell property. And in his revised and proposed Section 1-3-1, the language that the petitioner puts forth states that the town council may sell property only after approval by the town's voters, after being submitted to the electorate on referendum ballot at the next scheduled election. So currently, the town council has the ability to buy, to encumber, to sell, to lease, property. That all stays the same with the exception of selling, and the petitioner seeks to limit the town council's authority to sell property to that only after approval by the town voters. So having read, again, the charter, the law, all applicable laws and ordinances, I do find that, that the petition is consistent and seeks to put forth a legislative proposal and is thereby legally permissible. And in my opinion, the town council should find this petition to be valid.
All right, thank you. With that, before we turn it over to the applicant of the person who put the initiative forward, is there a motion to mark this initiative as either accepted or as invalid?
Sure. I'll make a motion to mark the petition valid.
Second.
All right. So discussion, any discussion from anybody right now? All right, does the applicant wish to speak?
The only question I have, Mark, does this mean all property? Oftentimes we'll take a police cruiser and we'll sell it to someone. Do we have to go to the town if we're going to sell any property, or are we talking specifically property that is land and or buildings?
Real property.
I mean, because if we're going to have to go and ask the town every single time we want to retire a police car and sell the other one.
I believe this only speaks to real property,
Okay.
not personal property.
I'll just hear if there's a question.
All right. Any questions?
I have no questions. I got a statement. Yeah, I'm not too crazy about this one. I mean, that's what we're elected for, is to make these decisions. I think the best way out of this situation is to have a majority, a supermajority vote. Instead of a 3-2, it would be a 4-1 to sell a building. That way they have more consensus, and you won't get the bureaucracy of an election. I think that would be the simpler way to go. But just so my colleague over here doesn't do a citizen's arrest, I will be supporting this to move on to the next level. So.
All right, anyone else? Stanley.
Barney.
Stan Wojciechowski again. What comes to mind is the garages at Davis Street. I mean, I thought Avis. I thought Avis. I'm sorry, Avis. I thought that that was a potential sell as a town surplus property, let's say. So I don't think we want to encumber the town council from making these decisions. In fact, I think the voters are a lot less qualified to determine the value of some of these lots out there. And if I attended a few finance committee meetings, and there was a movement by them to try and list all the properties and try to figure out which ones are really a burden to the taxpayers, let's say. What can, there may be different lots here, different lots there. Which ones can we let go, either to help our tax base or to stop a maintenance issue or whatever? And I don't believe the taxpayers should be involved in every little decision on that. It just seems it's taking away some of your decision-making and putting it in the hands of people who will be less informed or less able to figure out the details. They won't pay attention. So I think you ought to not consider this for all land everywhere in town. I just don't want to take that power away from you. I think you will do a better analysis than any voter out there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so again, we're looking at the legal validity of this and our views of it. We can talk about when if it is put on the ballot in 2020. So any other thoughts? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved, 5-0. All right, that brings us to open forum. Please conduct yourself in an orderly fashion. The comments made during this portion of our meeting are neither adopted nor endorsed by this body, and please state your name and address for the record. Yes.
Gloria Roman, 33 Wheatfield Cove Road, Narragansett. I want to publicly thank State Representative Teresa Tanzi and State Senate Bridget Valverde for inviting the Library Board of Trustees, the Library Director, and the President of the Friends to the State House as their guest, as each made a proclamation declaring April 13th as Rhode Island Library Day, and for their support at our library event on Saturday, April 13th, and their support of our journey to secure the Belmont Marketplace as the new library. I want to publicly thank Jesse Pugh and his family, Patrick Murray and his wife Diane, for coming out to our library event on Saturday, April 13th, and for supporting the efforts of the library supporters to move forward with the new library plan at the Belmont IGA. I want to publicly thank Mr. Gobain and his staff for their generosity in offering the library supporters the use of his property at the side of the Belmont building on Saturday, April 13th, for the event that we held. And I want the voting residents of Narragansett to know that the town forbid the library and any of their supporters from using the town building, the marketplace, and any of the 59 parking spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes.
Mary Ann Grinchenko, 221 Foddering Farm Road. I would like to read in a letter sent by the American Library Association to the Narragansett Town Council. Dear President Mannix and Town Council members, we are writing to express our full support for the librarians, staff, and trustees of Maury Lugens Memorial Library, and to urge the Council to honor the authority of the library's governing board and the outcome of the 2016 referendum on a board for a new library. As you work in partnership to develop a library facility that reflects the needs and wishes of the Narragansett residents. Public libraries are cornerstones of vibrant communities, critical to the community educational system, employment and business environment, and social foundations. They are also very smart investments. Studies across the country show that the return on investments in public libraries is about $5 to every $1 allocated, with additional economic benefits to the area's businesses. In addition, public libraries are found to have a positive impact on home values and to be perceived as fundamental components of local infrastructures. Overwhelmingly, passage of the 2016 referendum that specified the purchase and renovation of the new Narragansett building highlights the community's support for the expanded, improved library service. This support is amplified by the generosity of private donors who have pledged significant funds towards the project. The current Narragansett facility does not serve all members of the community. It offers only 1/3 of the prescribed square footage, and the administration has had to seek waivers from the Rhode Island State Library due to accessibility limitations and the lack of safety compliance. Plans for a new facility must address those constraints to ensure that the library can serve everyone and remain eligible for both capital investments and ongoing operations funding from the state. Equitable access to resources for all community members is a core value of librarianship and an integral part to the mission of every public library. We commend Narragansett professional staff and trustees for their commitment to the mission, and we urge the council to work with them to ensure Narragansett Library's restraints and needs and wishes of a community as articulated in years of planning and at the ballot box. Sincerely, Loida Garza, FIBO President of the American Library Association. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and then you, sir.
Carleen Town, 240 Wood Hill Road, Narragansett. Sometimes I leave these town council meetings wondering if I am deaf, dumb, and blind. I walk out the door and think, was I sleeping throughout that entire exchange and just dreamed I heard, saw, and interpreted these things? For instance, at the last town council meeting, there was a good deal of discussion about open forum. Mr. Pugh read and reread the wording regarding open forum that was adopted in August 2018 concerning the rules and procedures for town council meetings. These procedures were passed unanimously, and Mr. Mannix, Mr. Murray, and Ms. Lawler were all on the town council at the time. Now we see that open forum has been moved to the end of the meeting. More about that later. I thought our town manager, Mr. Corrigan, stated that the 30-minute cap was a clerical situation because it just didn't read properly. It was also stated that it was never the intent to create that cap. It was just a clerical thing. Mr. Mannix stated that he didn't even know why we were having this discussion because the 30-minute limit was never enforced. He even agreed with Mr. Pugh that they did not vote on the change of language, only on the move to the end of the meeting. Mr. Mannix further stated that the language would be corrected and essentially we would restore the words if any speakers who have not had an opportunity to be heard at the end of the 30 minutes, open forum would continue at the end of the meeting. He said more than once, we can fix that. Even after all the comments attributed to you all and the comments from the audience about the people's right to speak, even Stanley was in favor not only of not limiting open forum unless we went past the 11 p.m. mark, but also of restoring at least some time for open forum to the beginning of the meeting for those people who had time constraints. Even after all of that, Ms. Lawler had the gall to say, the time's over. We're already into the half hour for open forum. I make a motion to close the meeting. She didn't say it's 11 p.m. She said, we're more than a half hour in. So answer me this. Who was sleeping during that earlier discussion? Was it I or was it Ms. Lawler? Now back to discussing open forum. In an interview with Mr. Cozzolino from the Narragansett Times after the last meeting, Mr. Mannix, you were quoted as saying you were open to moving open forum back to the front of the meeting now that the transition between the town managers had taken place. But your final quote was, now it may or may not move. I was hoping you would explain what you meant by those words here in chambers so that we can all hear your motivation for answering Mr. Cozzolino's questions and not in that way, and not merely having us interpreting the printed word. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Robert Ireland, 70 Avis Street, Narragansett. I've been observing the activity of this council with regard to the issue of the Narragansett Library since the January meeting in which you voted to sell the Belmont building. contrary to the wishes of 68% of the Narragansett voters, and contrary to the vast majority of people who have spoken out here in favor of renovating this space as the new town library. Let me be very clear about my primary concern. The actions of the majority of this council are very clearly not only contrary to the will of the majority of Narragansett voters, who clearly knew what they were voting for, it is very clearly against the principles of democratic government. In a democracy, the majority rules. To vote to clearly subvert the will of the majority by putting this building up for sale and refusing to even consider any appeals smacks of authoritarianism. What is democracy? According to the dictionary, democracy is, quote, government by the people, a form of government in which the supreme power is vested in the people and exercised directly by them or by their elected agents under a free electoral system. While you all are duly elected agents, the majority of you refuse to abide either by the majority of Narragansett voters, as expressed by the clear passage of the vote for the library bond, or the vast majority of voters who have stood at this place and expressed their clear desires to this council. Thus, the actions of the majority of this council are clearly undemocratic. Recently, a letter from the National Library Association sent to the council pointed to a number of studies indicating that the return on investment in public libraries is, as you just heard, $5 for every $1 allocated, with additional economic benefits to area businesses. In addition, public libraries are found to have a positive impact on home values and to be perceived as fundamental components of local infrastructure, end quote. The letter also points out that the current 9,000 square foot library is woefully inadequate in size and that, quote, about 24,000 square feet of space would be needed to accommodate the local use of the library and its programs, end quote. Thus, the renovation of the current building would not give Narragansett residents what they need, in addition to being much more expensive than the option we voted for. To bully and intimidate people who use this podium to express their views, which very often run counter to your plan, is just unconscionable for an elected official, albeit a commonplace political tactic today. The popularity of this political charade in today's society does in no way condone this behavior. In the immortal words of Mr. Joseph Welch during his testimony in front of Senator Joseph McCarthy, and I quote, "Have you no decency, sir?" end quote. In this case, this is clearly a rhetorical question, as the true answer is clearly provided by actions which speak louder than words. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Madge Mitchell McCarthy, Edgewater Road, Narragansett. I am a supporter of our library. I've also been a voter here in Narragansett for over 40 years, and I'm a taxpayer. And my friends in my neighborhood are all asking me the question, what is it costing us, the taxpayers of Narragansett, while we have these two buildings? You've got the maintenance of both. You've got the heat, the air conditioning. The building's going to continue to deteriorate. So we want to know, what is this costing us daily, monthly, yearly? And can you give us that information either tonight or can you have it available to us in the future so that we know why we have to pay so much money to keep these two buildings going? If you had moved on it and let us start with the proposal for the new library, that would have been sufficient. Thank you.
Thank you. I see two hands up, Mary Nadeau and Stanley.
Good evening, I'm Mary Nadeau. I live at 10 2nd Street in Narragansett, Rhode Island. Proud library supporter. I did want to, there was an article in the Providence Journal, I'm not sure if everyone saw it, on Sunday. It was talking about our event, a part of the Library Week. We had a Library Day celebration in our library, so I'm just going to read parts of it. So the article is by Madden List, so library patrons squeeze into some family fun. So parents and young children build along the tight space in the Memorial Legion's Memorial Library on Saturday, getting their faces painted, looking at the starfish and crabs, taking pictures with a panda. We had library services we talked about, and we had some Know Your Library events there too. The Family Fun Day was in honor of the National Library Week. It was supposed to be held at the property at the empty Belmont building, which the town purchased last year to convert to a new library space, but recently put back on the market. And holding the Family Fun Day, the event was not allowed because the town said no, we could not have the event there. So we were not allowed to have the event there, and not on the library property, the new property, the Belmont building. So the town wouldn't allow us to have it there. So we were very lucky that the Gilbane let us have it, well, they were going to let us have it outside on the sidewalk area and the patio area near Dunkin' Donuts and the restaurant. Instead, we had it inside because of inclement weather. So the kids and the adults were squeezing past each other, and part of the activities in library Saturday further exemplified the need for a new library space, said Nancy D'Annunzio, president of the Love Your Library Coalition. The library was built in the early 60s for a population of 3,200 people. Now we have 16,000 people in Narragansett, and it's the 6th busiest library in the state. In 2016, the voters passed the ballot question authorizing to borrow $5.8 million, which was 67.9% of the people who chose to vote. The town bought the building in Belmont in October 2018, and it was supposed to happen in November to do the RFP, but the town council changed and they opposed the project. In January, the council voted to put the property back on the market, much to the dismay of the many residents, said Nancy D'Annunzio. They're really not honoring the democratic process and really very disappointed there has been such pushback to the town council. The current library building on Kingston Road is not compliant with the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act and fails to meet several other standards set out in the Rhode Island Library Association, Nancy said. Attendees at Saturday's event said they would gladly have them move to a much larger, bigger building. We need more space, said Kendra Machado of Narragansett. We have a vacant building right next door, and there's no real reason not to use it. Several other people were interviewed also, and it came down to people were very saying that we have a community setting, and library is a place to gather and value the community. So, excuse me. It's really important. I just feel, one quote is, I just feel it's a place everyone can come. It's a place with a lot of different things to do and have a lot of activities, including reading. And that's the basis of the article. Thank you.
Thank you. Stanley.
Yes, I have to agree, and I've said it many times, the librarians, the staff is the key. The staff has made this facility what it is, and it's provided so much for all our families. And I'd just like to expand on that a little bit, since we do have 3 other facilities that have a library. I talked about them before, and I was thinking about it. I would think that if you're talking to the school, maybe you could ask them if they could have their librarian change the hours from 11 in the morning to 7 at night, so that the school children could utilize the library at each school. We have a lot of athletic activities, and we have kids there late. Surely it would be appropriate to let the children stay in the library or in the school till 7 o'clock at night. I don't know if you remember what I told you before, though. My most valuable experience was with a librarian who helped me raise my grades by 1 full grade back in the 8th grade. So the 8th grade was the impact time. It wasn't that I went to a library, it was the library at the school that helped me. The librarian took me under, and she said, "You will read." And that was the issue. So I want to expand the library usages, if you will. Each school has a library. You have librarians in there. They can develop, they can be focused on each age group, and they can provide the movies for each age group. It just seems that that's one area that we haven't looked at. So let's look at that, using existing facilities as we move forward and using the added staff there. And as far as adding staff, the librarians there could probably have some helpers and volunteers to help them at these schools. They don't need a degreed librarian, if you will. So we got to be looking at stuff like that. Item 2 is the existing library. I don't know if we need a lawn out there. We don't need a lawn out front. I think we could have 3 or 4 large rooms added to the library that might do the job. I mean, what do we have a lawn out there for? Get the building right out to the sidewalk. Maybe an addition is possible. I don't know how else. Can we get closer to the fire station? I don't know where can we go. Can we add to what we have rather than a new building? I haven't heard the results of something like that. Well, I haven't looked for it either, I have to admit, but like everyone else, you don't know everything that's going on in town. But it just seems there's a lot of wasted space at the library site that appears that we could use.
Thank you, Stanley.
All right. Just one other thing is I drove by the library 2 or 3 times a day, and today I drove by 3 times, and there was space in the parking lot. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else? Yes, Suzanne.
Susan Amoruso, West Bay Drive. I wasn't really going to talk, but I was sitting there and I was thinking, I did a lot of errands today. So I was up in East Greenwich, North Kingston, and then I went over to Exeter. And it was really kind of amazing to me that my button on my pocketbook, people said to me, oh, you're from Narragansett. And not in a good way. They were like, you're part of the library. What is up with your town council? And there is no answer. But I thought it was amazing that in those towns, this has spread beyond our town. This has become, it's slowly growing, and there are people in other places, you know, friends, they talk about it. So this is something that Narragansett is being known for, that their town council is going against a referendum and is going against a library. And the excuse about us being able to afford it, I mean, everyone says, just drive around Narragansett. Yes, there's low income in every single town, but that is not the first thing that you would think of when you come around to Narragansett. So I was amazed. So I think you need to keep that in mind, that there's a lot of negative feeling about the town council and what has spurred this town. They don't understand it, and there is no explanation. And I don't feel as voters we got that explanation. And the comment about, well, you know, this isn't really representative of the voters. The people who count are the people who show up to vote, and everyone has that opportunity. So if you care that much, then you show up and you vote. It's like the library supporters here tonight. If you care about it, then you show up and you say you care. So this, it's embarrassing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Jay.
On a little bit of a different subject here. Last meeting, Mrs. Laura, she spoke of only allowing tax-paying community members to speak at our town council meetings, not people from Las Vegas. This, I believe, sets a bad precedent to our out-of-towners. Well, even though some people that come to these meetings may not be homeowners in this overpriced real estate market, they are our friends, our family, and business owners, and they are a part of our community. They are from neighboring towns, and they support our town. They aren't from Las Vegas. I would hope, Mrs. Lawler, you would know that this community is filled with out-of-town people. And like you, they have a voice too. Our right-of-ways are for all, and there should be parking to access those areas. I was hoping Mr. Murray would have put a motion to allow the parking on one side of the roads brought up at the last town meeting until such time that a public hearing is held. I was hoping for that, and hopefully next meeting we can get that done before the public hearing, because
It would short circuit the whole point of a work session, Jay.
Okay.
Can I address that, Matt?
But go ahead.
The police safety committee is reviewing my motion.
Okay.
Okay, so it's not something that was just thrown
Great.
out there, okay? Looking to expand parking on Conant, Louise, and Pilgrim Avenues, respectfully. And it's just being vetted. Out of respect for our interim town manager and the staff, I stood down instead of putting it out there. And as far as it preempting the work session, I don't think it's wasting anybody's time to get a jump start on this situation. Thank you.
No, and I don't either. I just would hope that people don't get expensive tickets for going down there to use the right-of-ways during that time. There was surf today. There was people down there. I'm not sure if anybody got a ticket, but you saw a lot of people, as many people here tonight and that were here at other meetings for the library. You had a lot of people that came to that. And that really, I think, sets a precedence of this decision-making of the council itself, in this session. I think you have a lot of angry community members, as well as some angry out-of-town community members that use this town and feel a little jaded by your decision-makings and some of your comments. And those are the people that actually, bring income to this town. And like I said, they're family, friends, and I would hope that we would listen to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved, 5-0. Happy Easter, everybody.